Hi everybody, welcome back to this particular video. If you have actually been a subscriber to this channel, it's been a couple of years since I've made a video, and you might be wondering where I've been all this time. I actually haven't gone back through all the videos that I've made in the past. I've had a look at some of the titles, getting a rough idea about what I spoke about back then, and one of the videos I quickly started, and it's interesting because I still identified with having mental problems, and so I can really see how far I've come since that time. Over the last couple of years, I can honestly say that I'm absolutely cured of any mental condition whatsoever. I know that's not a popular term, the word used cure, particularly when doctors and the like are often telling us that there is no cure. Well, I found in many ways that that's just not true at all. So if I'm going over a couple of old ground here, I will be moving on forward. It's just that I can't quite recall, and I don't really have the time to go through every single video. So essentially, if I think back, I did talk an awful lot about what I had done using psychedelics to help me with my depression, and a lot of realizations I've made in terms of anxiety and paranoia and things like that. And I think I made some good content back then related to that. Anyway, through the process of actually continually looking to get my mind in shape, I've actually have come to a place of total contentment and peace in my mind and my life, actually. So what I ended up doing was getting very much into meditation. And I did that for a number of reasons. At one point, back in September 2016, I actually injured my back, and I had that problem for quite a time, and it was very serious actually. It was chronic back pain, and I was in a tremendous lot of pain. And I saw a lot of doctors and various people, in that area to do with backs, and had all these tests done, and finally they just said, well, that's just how it's going to be. You're just going to have your back like this for the rest of your life. And I mean, I was in a lot of pain. I mean, I was very limited with what I could do. It was hard for me to walk, and I would have been maybe about around 37 years old around that time, I'd say 37, 38, something like that, when that started. So it's quite young, really, to think that you're going to go through the rest of your life in this severe pain. So this is an interesting aspect to do with mindset. So through studying the mind, I didn't realize the power of the mind. I didn't really understand it to the depth then as I do now. But what I ended up doing was just telling myself that I'm getting better. Simple as that sounds, I just had this belief in my mind that I'm getting better. And the same thing was with my knees as well. I actually had very bad problems with my knees, my joints in my knees, and some of that came from when I was younger, skateboarding and falling off. I had some pretty serious injuries there. And the other aspect was when I had put on an awful lot of weight from taking psychotic medications, antipsychotics. And so I'd put on an awful lot of weight. So at my heaviest, I was about 105 kilograms. Sorry, I'm not sure what that is in pounds off the top of my head. And now I'm about 73, 74. So, it's a pretty big difference, dropping that sort of amount of kilograms down. But that helped with my knees as well. Losing the weight definitely helped with that as well. But I just remember, though, between the back and the knees, I would try and go for a walk at some points, and I remember with my knees the pain, and at one point I'd even try and just do a tiny little bit of a jog, which is really something considering I struggled with walking at that point in time. And when the pain would kick in, I would stop, and I would just tell myself in my mind, even though I'd think through the pain, this is just a part of it getting better. It's part of it getting better. And I know that sounds somewhat quite delusional. However, I mean, the results are fantastic. I mean, it wasn't just that. I'll get onto more of that, but that was one aspect of what I had done. Just total belief that I was getting better. And I mean, I am better. I'm completely better in every mind, body, everything. I'm just, life's fantastic. It really is great. So through that as well, I got into meditation, and I really didn't know much about it. But I would just sit down, and the very basics that I sort of knew about it, basically close your eyes and I mean, it's essentially, all meditation essentially is that. Not all of them. There's some that you can open your eyes, but yeah, essentially you're just sitting there. Again, I know there is standing in walking meditations, but just trying to get the general point across here. Anyway, through doing that, I remember I was smoking marijuana at that point of time too, because of the pain I still had in my body, and I couldn't continue to take the medications that the doctors were prescribing for two reasons. One, they didn't really want to give them to me anymore, which is fine. I understand that. It's very addictive, some of that stuff, and I didn't really want to take it either. And the other aspect to that was it just wasn't very good. You know, it was kind of addictive for the body, so I didn't really want to have that. So moving to the marijuana was a lot more accessible for me actually than the other medications, and in fact it was a lot more effective. And I learned some things through doing that too, because I hadn't had marijuana for quite a long time before then, and that's the only reason I went back to it for pain relief. But anyway, through doing that, I found that it's a very useful thing, or can be a very useful thing in meditation practices. I'll probably do a video on that in itself actually, because there's some things to think about with that. Anyway, there was actually, what had happened to me was I was just meditating, and I was actually painting at the time, and I stopped to have a little meditation, and I did a chakra meditation based off a video I had seen on a man named Edgar Casey, and his way of describing, not him personally, but somebody else, you know, talking about him. He's passed away. I'm not sure exactly when, but been a few decades at least, I think. And through doing that one meditation, I felt this incredible surge of energy come through my body, and I didn't really know what had happened at that point in time, and I thought to myself, wow, that was pretty significant. You know, something really big just happened then in my life. And for the next couple of weeks after that, I just kept meditating. I really started getting to it then, and this energy just was always present, always there. I didn't barely even have to think about it. It was there. And my body got better. My body got better and better and better. And not only did it get better, but it really was a type of spiritual awakening. I mean, I didn't really know what that stuff was then. And look, if you're someone of a atheistic sort of point of view, I'll probably do a video on this. So you'll probably see a different sort of point of view, and you might find this a little bit more agreeable or more stomachable. You know, using these sort of terms in terms of spirituality and the related type things. So from that though, my mind did get an awful lot more cleared up than ever. To the depths of the subconscious in time sort of came up and came out, and I found an awful lot of peace through doing this practice of meditation. From there, strangely enough, I'd never actually heard this word before, but the idea of metaphysics came into my mind, and I felt there was something I should really look into. As I said, I had no idea what it was, and I looked it up, and when I first read the definition of it, I really didn't understand it at all. But I kept searching and seeking in this area, and I found that there's two aspects to metaphysics. There's what we call the secular and the non-secular, or I'll call the spiritual aspect. So metaphysics in itself is actually a branch of philosophy. Probably the highest branch of philosophy in terms of it being more abstract, or at least seen that way. Well, I mean, there is definitely that aspect to it. So I initially went at it looking at it from the secular point of view, and I found that it really was interesting, but it really wasn't getting anywhere. But I was sort of drawn to the spiritual aspect. So I ended up getting into, and I'm still doing it now actually, a study of metaphysics, and just this Christmas past, I got my bachelor's in the area, and I'm working into masters now. So yeah, my life really got into this spiritual aspect, and it's not from a place of need or escapism. You know, sometimes people turn to things when they're not coping, and they're looking for something to believe in. It wasn't anything to do with that at all. It really something that has enhanced my life, and through a great study of this area, as well as a great practice of meditation, I have found the benefits of the truth in a lot of these things. This is going to be a very interesting topic actually, and I'm not going to go all into this video. It's sort of just a summary of where I've been. So I was living in a place when I was first making these videos called Ballarat, which is in Australia. It's an old gold town. It's a very big, beautiful town. I'm no longer there. I actually ended up meeting a girl, and who I'd met a long time before. I think it was nearly 20 years we'd met, and it was great. Like, we got together and we lived together for a year, just over a year, and we've only just separated about just over 2 months ago. So it didn't work out, and she's a lovely person, and I really wish her the best, and yeah, it was great. But anyway, sort of diverging a little bit there about what's been happening. So obviously that is a part of it. But in terms of my mindset and things, and this aspect of the metaphysical aspect, what I have discovered is that there definitely is an intelligence to this universe, which I'm sure some of you would probably already realize this already. And that the word that you might use, for instance, in religion as saying God, which is a very loaded term, where, it conjures up all sorts of different ideas in people's minds at that word, which I have realized. If we take it away from a religious point of view, and then we look at really what I believe it really sums up, is that the word God really is a term to be used for the total sum of all energy in the entire universe. It is everything. It is within everything. It is us. We're a part of God. There's no separation, because, as we discovered last century in science, that what we think is actually called matter doesn't really exist as we think it does. Everything is really just vibrating frequencies of energy. And so we know also that within this energy there is an intelligence. So we know this through quantum physics, that there's an interesting experiment that was done back in the start of the 20th century. I think it was 1909, I think it was, called the double slit experiment. And I won't go through what that experiment was. You can look into that yourself. But a very interesting aspect of that was there seemed to be the photon that they were working with in this experiment seemed to know that it was being observed. And so this is very interesting, that this intelligence seems to be in everything and everywhere all the time. Now, at first this may seem a little strange, and then until, if you're looking for, say, for instance, empirical evidence or data, well, as I say to people, I can't give you that, but you can prove things to yourself. And the way you can do that is through going into meditation, deep states of meditation, and really seek out the methods such as what the yogis, great yogis, have done. And I've done that. I've studied into aspects of yoga. In fact, I've stumbled across an awful lot of things myself over time, which, maybe months or even a year or two later, I've read in a book and found that, I've definitely had that experience. So I know it in a way to be real, but yeah. So I mean, look, yoga in itself is a science. There's different yogas out there, but the meditative aspect and following different practices of it, you will have eventually the same or similar experience of what is actually often written about or spoken about. And what we're really looking at here is this union, which is what yoga is really to become familiar with or join. Our bodies with this spirit. So we look at spirit too as the sum total of all energy, or as they once worded, ether, or if you more modern, quantum field. It's all essentially, it is the same thing. We're a part of it, and we can actually communicate and connect to it. So through my meditation and getting my body better, I discovered it was through this connection. And as time's gone on, I've really understood a lot more about how this sort of works. I've read an awful lot of texts over the years too, in this area, which of different periods, and they all sort of back up each other in their own way, saying the same thing, but in different words. And when I did get better, I was curious about this, and I ended up researching what had actually happened to me, trying to understand it. And I came across a man who, his name is Dr. Joe Dispenza. Some of you may be familiar with him. If you're not, I highly recommend you look him up, particularly if you're having any kind of health issues yourself, or or know someone else who is. And it doesn't really matter whether it's a terminal illness or a rare genetic disease. He has certainly stumbled across this himself, and over the years has perfected this into a way that a great deal of people who are following his method or methods are getting healed of all sorts of things. So if this is the first time you ever heard anything like this, just keep an open mind if it's sounding a little bit strange. But it's, the more I've read into it, I mean, it's such a huge topic. You know, the more you sort of understand that we don't need to be popping pills and things like that to get better. And that was one of the things I realized through when I was suffering from mental problems, mental conditions, was that I was being pumped full of all these pills, and I really wasn't getting any better. In fact, I think it was getting worse. In some cases I was, and it certainly was impacting my health. And, you know, and if it impacts your health and you get put on a lot of weight and things, well, therefore it can impact more on your self-confidence. So, you know, it's sort of a downward spiral in that way. And that did happen to me, because I was never a large person ever in my life until I started taking all of that stuff. Now, I'm not to say there isn't a place for it. I think if it's helping you right now, I'm not telling you not to take it anymore. But what I'm suggesting is it's not necessary once you work out a way to, or a method, follow a method that actually is working without those things. And at this point of time too, I have been, over the last couple of years, writing a book on this topic, this area, because I really want to share my experiences and knowledge that I have, and even a little bit of wisdom, I suppose, through what I have done to get better. Because in my belief, I really do believe this. I believe everybody can get better. I don't think everybody will get better, but I think they have the potential to. Because what we're really dealing with here is people's minds are disordered, and they've got these patterns that are not helpful to them within their minds. They've etched very deeply within their brains, the pathways of certain thinking. However, this can be reversed, and I know it can because I've done it. And I would say that it's you know, similar in the ways that maybe psychologists try to go about it with cognitive behavioral therapy. However, I think that's limited. I've maybe drawn on aspects of that without even realizing it through my own experiences and also in my own book. But what I've discovered is that it really needs to be a holistic approach, and that means that it's not just one thing. It needs to be everything in your life. You need to approach the whole thing with every single facet you can think of. You know, there are so many things in the world that can be vying for our attention, but also having an impact on us in a negative way. So with that in mind, we need to be doing the best we can to help ourselves against the things that aren't helpful. I mean, a good example of that is food. You know, it's better to eat healthy food for various reasons than eat, you know, things that aren't very healthy. It's a simple thing, you know. I mean, that's one thing. I mean, if you're just filling your body full of garbage, and then you're getting your mind full of garbage from perhaps the news and television and a whole bunch of things that are creating fear and you know, amongst other people, between other people, fear of what may happen, all sorts. I mean, news is very good at that, and same with politics and religion. It can great at creating division, fear and division of one another, and of what would happen if you didn't follow what they say, you know, or, you know, believe in them. So, you know, we have those aspects too, and then we've got environmental factors with, you know, places that we might go that perhaps aren't very nice, whether it's we have to travel through an area that's perhaps, you know, well, a bit slummy. I grew up in an area like that, so, you know, I know the effects it can have on you. I grew up in a very rough area, but there are so many things anyway within our lives that, yeah, can impact us. So we're going to need to do what we can to help support ourselves in a healthier state of mind. And in my book, I go into quite a lot of depth about these areas. So I've tried rewriting this book a number of times over the last couple of years, because I'm just trying to capture it exactly, well, everything that I did initially to help myself, However, it's tricky because as time's gone on, I've just gathered so much additional information and skills and practices that I want to sort of put all those in there too. But it's just been a challenge anyway, trying to work out what to filter at this point in time, what to add, what not to add. One of the things I decided on though early on, after one or two of my first drafts, was I'm actually not going through my life story at all. A lot of books focus on that in the mental area. I've had many books over the years that have done that. They've just focused very much on that person's lifestyle and what they've gone through, and look, that can be useful. However, I feel it's time to leave that stuff behind, and it's time to move forward to solutions and not dwell on what's happened. Yeah, I can just identify this is how it was, and had all these things, and yes, I did suffer quite a lot, and suicidal depression, all that sort of stuff. But I don't want to dwell on that. And I know from a point of interest it may be to others, to relate to that. But rather than that, let's just focus on where we want to go rather than where we don't want to go. And that's one of the things I've realised too. Is in life is it's there's only ever two things that are really going on. It's an interplay of energies constantly without the entire universe, even within your day. We are an energy system. Your thoughts are energy. Where you are right now, if you're sitting in a computer or on a couch or in a car, it's all energy, everything. The car is, the space in it, everything's energy. So we need to work with it, knowing that there is positive and there's negative aspects of energy, and it has a feeling, it has a vibration and frequency to it, such as you could have the same lounge room or living room in your house. It could be totally clean, has a certain sort of feel about it, and then if you just let it clutter up with dirty plates and dishes, it's the same place, but it's got a different energy about it now. And that has an effect on you. That's why we can kind of say that's appealing or that's not appealing. It's generally not appealing to see a whole bunch of dirt and junk and things around. It has a psychological effect. But then when you tidy a space, it feels different. And these are the simple little things that you can do to help you in this way that I'm sort of talking about here. So I will get into in greater detail these things. So I've also changed jobs during this time. My background was in architecture, and I moved out of that, and I moved in towards my artwork, and then I met the lovely lady that I was with, and we built a couple of businesses together, and sold two, and we've got one still, and but now I'm moving back into my creativity and my artwork and woodwork and all those sort of things, and I will probably do a video on that too, because I think it's a really important area to understanding about following your joy, your heart's desire, your passion in life. It's it's a reasonably good topic, I think, for lots of reasons. Now with this channel, where it's going to go, I'm not 100% certain. I'm going to keep adding content to it. But what I thought I would do is actually ask you, the listener, what would you like to hear? What would you like to know? And I'm not saying it because I haven't got ideas. It's more about, I've got plenty of topics I can talk about, but it's more about you ask me what you want to know, and I'll address it. I know there's already been a comment on one of the videos just recently. Someone's actually asked me something about that in relation to something else, and I will do a video on that. I think from memory, the question was something about it's to do with the use of psychedelic drugs if you have a mental illness such as bipolar or schizophrenia or something related to that, and what my views are on it. Whether people should or shouldn't take that sort of stuff. And I will address that because it's an interesting topic, and I'll give my thoughts on it. Possibly after this video, actually. So where I'm going now, as I said, I've moved areas. I was in Ballarat, and I moved to a different area on the other side of the city. It wasn't really working for me. And now I'm actually living in the mountains. And I would actually really love to talk about this from the metaphysical aspect about my life, about how my life has changed tremendously in a positive way since I've been following aspects of looking into metaphysics and applying it to my life. Because that definitely is something that's very helpful, not just for my life, for everybody's lives. And I think that's something that really could be incorporated into my book in a way, but I kind of don't want to just muddy it all up between my own discoveries and then these new ones that I definitely are helpful in applying a lot of these things to someone who's maybe suffering with mental issues. But I almost feel that should be a separate book in itself, for a number of reasons. One of them is actually I'm wanting the book to be more of a secular nature that has nothing related to anything kind of spiritual. I want people to be able to relate to it who perhaps are atheists, or maybe even they're atheists, they're just not into any other sort of stuff. So I'll keep it clean in that way, I think. And I've got practices that I'm going to have throughout the book that people can apply. And yeah, I think that's the way to go about it. But I am very open to any suggestions of anything anyone would like to know. I'm probably going to leave this video here because I've sort of gone on a bit, and I just sort of started. I didn't really have any kind of direction where I was going with this video. It was more just about touching base with everybody. It's been a couple of years, and I'll just give you a rough idea about where I've been and where I'm thinking. I know it's probably not very detailed in some ways, but here we go. As it is, I'm going to leave it here. I'm glad that many of you have expressed that you've gotten some value out of the videos already, and that's really what it's about. I'm really happy to hear that. So I'm going to leave this one here, and keep subscribed. Click that little bell button that's under the videos to let me know when the next video is out, because I am coming back on board now with these videos. So if you do have any suggestions, you can email them to me. I'll put my email address in the description. And I just hope you're all having a great day, and I hope that any of you that have been listening to these videos from when they first started have come to a place of peace. If you haven't already had that beforehand, if you were suffering from sort of mental issues or any kind of disturbances or neurotic symptoms of any kind, that perhaps hopefully some of these words have actually helped you in some way. But anyway, leave this here, and I wish you all a great day.